now. So, Pastor T, I want to start by saying a huge thank you, just for your time. I know you guys are busy trying to get ready for opening up for worship tomorrow, and you've still carved out time just to, give me this interview. So really appreciate that. And I think it's a huge testament to the kind of person you are. And,
you joker.
And I think I'll use the opportunity and say, yourself, Sister Jillian, you guys are a huge, huge blessing to myself and Jane. And, we've got a lot of respect for you guys. And, you great, great examples in ministry and just in Christianity in general. And there's pivotal times of my life I remember just, where you've come through with some amazing advice. And so I'm really grateful, to have you as a brother, as a fellow pastor. And yeah, it's a real honor.
John, those are very nice words. Thanks, John. We appreciate you too, man. Appreciate you too.
No, it's a blessing. Well, Pastor T, for the benefit of those that don't know you too well, can you just give us a bit of your background, childhood, growing up, about you?
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know me, my actual name is Tapiwa, but everyone calls me Pastor T for short.
Yeah.
I was raised in Zimbabwe, went to school in Zimbabwe, and came to study in the UK. And pretty much that first year of being in England, I got saved, became born again. And so, pretty much changed everything. I was raised in a single parent home. Didn't get to meet my dad up until I was about 13 or 14 years old. So didn't know my dad. Met him when I was that age. And, it was one of those moments where you see someone for the first time and you're like, how is that,
Wow.
And so, so raised by my mom and my grandparents, my grandfather, who's my hero.
Yeah.
Those are the folks that raised me.
Yeah.
And so then came to England, got saved, became part of the church, got saved in Croydon, became part of the church, just began to get to understand God in a more less religious manner. Just grasped it, wanted to know God. Obviously being raised in a Christian home kind of helped because you have this sort of like background of Christianity. So when you hear the truth, you're kind of like held in by it, you're hijacked by it. And so I just gave myself towards that. Obviously we got saved in a church that believes in discipleship, that believes in personal responsibility and growing and being spiritual. So that all kind of helped me understand what I was a part of and what God had for me. And so my wife then came into the church. She got saved. I think about 2 years after she got saved, my eyes were opened. And so asked her out. We started dating. And then we got married. So I think we got married in 2005.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So 2005 we got married, and then the next year is we went to start our first church in a place called Sutton. You remember Sutton?
Yes. Yeah.
Sutton, 2006.
Yeah.
So so we went there. We kind of served God there. We pioneered the church for 2.5 years. Yeah. And then my pastor asked us to come back so we could become assistants to him in Croydon. And so then went back to Croydon in 2008 and did that for 6 years. Wow. And then in 2014, we flew overseas to Bolton. So over the motorway, the M40.
That's right.
To Bolton, and then that's where we've been since. So it's been a journey. It's been an adventure with God.
Wow.
And so so that's my story, man. That's how I got saved. That's my background. I wasn't always saved, so there's some information missing from age 14 to age 21.
So, I was going to ask you, I mean, you touched on it a bit, but like exactly how you got saved, did somebody invite you to church? Just what kind of clicked, and how did the gospel kind of...
It was a bit of a, yeah. So what happens is I'm living in a house with like a shared accommodation. So I've got my own room and everyone else has their own room. And so one of the guys downstairs loved his weed. And so we used to smoke weed together and stuff. And so the guy that would sell this guy weed became a good friend. So he would come sell the weed and we would smoke. And so, but then he got saved. He became a Christian. And so when he became a Christian, we were all kind of like, where's our supply? It obviously he didn't change overnight, but we could gradually see something was different about him up until he began to invite us to church. And we just like, I would be like, nah, I'm not coming. And then one time, just to get him off our backs, we said, hey, okay, we'll come. So one Sunday, about 7 of us all jumped into a train to go down to his church. So what was strange was, in that time in London, if you go on a train without paying, and the moment the inspectors came on, if you're a bunch of guys, you're the first people they're going to come to check whether your tickets, right? So, and our friend had said to us, listen, don't worry about money, just come, we'll make it to church. And so it was like, if we get caught, and so the inspector walks in, right? He looks at us, the train stops, and he walks out. And immediately I was like, is this guy real? Is this, so in my heart, I was like, that doesn't happen. So we get going, you go to church, get to the church, the pastor preaches, don't hear anything. People put up their hands, I look up, see everyone's hands up, so I put my hand up.
Right.
Remember, I've been brought up in church, so I kind of know what's gonna get said, So we all give our lives to Jesus at that day. For me, it was more like following what everyone else was doing, but I did it. And so we left the church, went back to Croydon. But I suddenly had this desire to find a church. I knew I couldn't go to where this church was because it was slightly too far.
Right.
And then I received a letter from my aunt just encouraging me to find God. And then that incident coupled together with a desire in my own heart to just find a church so I could, gradually get back into some sort of form of worship.
Yeah.
And so I remember one morning just waking up and saying just saying, I need to find a church.
Wow.
So I remember saying to one of the guys who lived in the same house, hey, I'm going to go into town and I'm going to see if I can find a leaflet to a church or to a concert. And we can go to the concert and then we can find out where I can get a good church from. Because that was my whole thing. I can't just walk into a church. I need to find it. So I walk into town, and the moment I walk into town, 2 girls walk up to me and they give me a leaflet for a concert.
Right.
So I get the leaflet, rush back home, tell the guys, hey, we've got a concert tonight, you're going to come with me. They say, hey, we'll go. Yeah. So we go to the concert. In the concert, we're slightly late, so we get there like just before the altar call. The altar call said, and I know the drill. So I just put my hand up because now I'm looking for myself, right? So I put my hand up. I give I pray the prayer, and then so the friends I've taken, they know everyone. They like talking to everyone. So I'm like, this is weird. Hang on, why where'd you know these people from? He goes, oh, our father is a pastor of the same church in Zimbabwe. So
whoa,
like, really? Okay. I was like, oh, okay. So what's the name of this church?
Yeah.
They were Potter's House. So, okay, fine. Well, that's cool. Yeah. So the guys take me home. The Wolfham's the guys take me home. And so I get home. So I'm talking to this guy. He goes, yeah, our dad's a pastor of the same church in Zimbabwe, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to go tomorrow for church.
Right.
So the next day I go to church, only like 2-3 people there. I'm like, so once again, but I never thought, what's this? Because in my mind, in my heart, I was making this decision to find a church.
Yes.
And because of the guys, the Bobbies and all them guys had treated me quite well the night before. Yeah. So I didn't kind of find it very strange that there's only 3 or 4 people in church.
Yeah.
And so what happens is the same guy that took us to church before, the one that used to sell us drugs. Right. Comes to visit.
Okay.
Right? So I'm like, oh yeah, listen, I went to church. He goes, oh, wow, you found the church? He goes, yeah, I went to church. I go, where's the church? I said, it's in Croydon. He goes, oh, what's the church called? I was like, Porter's House. And he goes, really? I was like, yeah. He goes, oh, because my church is Porter's House. The church I took you to was Porter's House.
Oh my goodness.
Right? And so for me, that was like the rubber stamp right there.
Yeah.
I kind of realized God has something for me here. I kind of realized, you know what? Yeah, this is too strange to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How does that happen? Yeah. So that's how I got saved, man. So then just carried on going to church from then.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Pastor T, thank you for that. That journey through, you growing up, getting saved. That's an amazing testimony, and just how, you initially got somewhere and then to find yourself, committed to the same church without even realizing it. It's amazing, how God orders our steps. But, the focus of this interview, Pastor, is all about purpose. And it was, I think I saw something you did recently online. It got recommended to me, and you were talking about purpose, and it jogged my memory that you'd actually themed this year a year of purpose for your church. Yeah. And so that was my first question: is why did you decide to make this year about purpose?
Yeah, I guess it was in the back of my mind. I've always wanted to try and focus on a particular subject in regards to our church for the year. So, what are we going to be looking at this year? But one of the reasons that struck me was the misunderstanding of purpose in a lot of new Christians and some Christians, so to speak. And it's this notion that God, I need to find my purpose, that if I find my purpose, right, then I know, right? And so it's just a confusion of what my purpose really is. And so it kind of bothered me it kind of bothered me. How can I put it? It's like trying to explain to people that you getting saved, you're already in the purpose that God has for you. Does it make sense?
Okay.
So let me put it this way. Often people confuse a specific calling to being their purpose rather than knowing God and living for God being their purpose.
Okay.
So you find someone saying, so God has you find someone saying, what is my specific purpose? What has God created me to do, right? Am I called to be a pastor? Am I called to be a doctor? Am I called to be an accountant? They want confirmation for that specific thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, that's not how it normally works. Because if you think about Paul had this supernatural encounter with Christ.
Right.
And he has a supernatural encounter with Christ, and Jesus says to him, I have a purpose, I have something for you, right? Go to this place. But it wasn't until like 13 years later that the Holy Spirit turns around and says, separate to me Barnabas and Paul.
Yes.
For a specific thing.
Right. Okay.
Right. So Paul was already living in his intended purpose, right? Before he went and did the specific thing that God wanted him to do.
Right. Got you. Okay.
Right. So the problem with that, with focusing on that specific thing, is that you then nullify and make everything else of less value.
Right. Okay.
Right. So that was my whole thing, trying to explain to people that you already know 99.9% of your purpose.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. You're focusing and worried about a 0.01%. Because if you focus on this 1% or 0.1%, this specific thing that God has for you, and you don't focus on the 99%, loving God, loving others, serving, serving, what other thing? There's 5 things, right?
Yeah.
When you don't focus on those and you just worry about the specific, you miss heaven.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So you could be a doctor and miss heaven.
Yeah.
You could be a preacher and miss heaven.
Yeah.
You could be right, and miss heaven because you've made the 1% the focus of your life.
Yeah.
And you've not made the other things that really matter. So it was me trying to convey that thought to our church to say, actually, your purpose is loving God with all your heart, all your strength, all your soul, all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. Your number one ultimate. There isn't one thing that God wants you to do. There is multiple of things that God wants you to do because your purpose is to be a husband.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? My purpose is to be a dad.
Yes.
Right? My purpose is also to be a pastor.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not just one thing. Right? It's loads of things that hinge on our relationship with God. Right? So that's why I wanted to do the series, because I was trying to explain to our church that ultimately your relationship with God is the thing that matters the most.
Okay.
Your relationship with God is what your ultimate purpose is, because in heaven you're going to have a relationship with God.
Yes. Yeah.
You're going to stop being a pastor.
Yeah.
You're going to stop being a doctor.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to stop being a nurse. You're going to stop being a politician. You're going to carry on being a son or daughter of God into eternity.
Yes.
Right? So that's why I wanted to do it, John. That's the reason why.
My goodness. You know what you've done there, Pastor T? You've completely overturned even my understanding of purpose. And the question, it's funny that you've mentioned that, because my questions were linked with that 1%, with that general understanding of there's this one thing, there's this specific thing. And many times, even me as a pastor, you agonize that, God, am I doing that specific thing? What if I was meant to be not a pastor, but an evangelist? What if I'm supposed to be an architect and I've just done this? And it's amazing that that's our thinking of purpose. And you're right. We spend most of our lives agonizing as to whether we're doing that specific thing, but sometimes trivializing the other stuff you've mentioned.
Yeah, no, absolutely, John. And even throughout, it's like in the book of Exodus, I believe it is, where God's about to build the tabernacle, or he's about to build the he's given us the structural elements of what needs to get built. Yeah. And he says, I have set aside Bezalel and Azariel, or whatever they are, for all things of craft, right?
Yeah.
But before he set them aside, they were part of the children of Israel. They were part of the camp. They were part of the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? That specific thing was just because, first, if you think about it for a moment, if God had just created them for that, right, to just build that, the moment they finish that, they have no use to God.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but that's not how there is there's a bigger thing, and this is to do with relationships, our relationship with God, and when that's in place, 99% of that we already know what that ought to look like.
Yeah.
If we concentrate on that, He will be sure to tell us what the specific thing, or guide us into our specific thing, because we've got the 99% on T, right? Yeah. It's already hard enough to do the 99%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what more concentrating on the 1%, how much less would we do the 99? So, so to me, that was and the thing is, with a church full of students, that's probably the number one question everyone asks.
Yes.
Right? To say, I don't know what my purpose is.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back home.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what my purpose is, so I'm gonna go to my parents and pray about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? you're going to pray about a specific 1%. When there's a 99,
that has already
been revealed to you.
Okay, yeah.
Right, and so that's how I process the series. That's how I kind of process the series, because so you find people making decisions based on that 1%.
Yes.
Right, rather than making decisions based on the 99 that they already know. So yeah.
Wow. So my next question, and the answer now is definitely not going to go the way I expected it to, but my next question was, so how do we identify our God-given purpose? But with the context you've given, this could go in a different direction. How do I identify it? So like you said, I'm a student, I've just finished uni, and I'm saying, what's my purpose?
Yeah. You know, this is the fundamental issue with this whole specific purpose business.
Yeah.
Is because God knows your purpose.
Yeah.
All right. So God already tells us what our purpose is, right? Yeah. Peter and John, James, Andrew, all of them guys already knew. Come follow me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That was that. I'm calling you to come and follow me, right? Then I will make you into fishers of men.
Okay.
So it starts off by you and I following Jesus.
Okay.
Right? Then he makes us become. Because our purpose is always bigger and better and greater than anything we could ever imagine.
Wow. Okay.
So if we're going to get into the purpose that God has for us, we need to allow God room to work on us, to shape us. We are the workmanship of Christ, right? So we have to allow room for him to shape us. Jesus didn't just get to Peter on day one and say, hang on, Peter, I want to make you into a fisher of men, right? It didn't work. It didn't happen that way. Peter had to go through discipleship. He had to be discipled. He had to fail. He had to do all that. And you then find Jesus at the end saying, Peter, do you love me? Right? Now, Jesus now honing into the specific. Do you love me?
Right.
Tend my sheep. Do you feed my sheep? Do you feed my sheep? This is what I've called you to do, Peter. Then you know what Peter does? He turns around and says, how about this guy? Right? How about this guy? So now he's hearing the specific calling or purpose that God has for him. And Peter's like, hang on, time out. Okay, if I'm going to do this, how about this guy over here? But you see, God had prepared him, John, to come to that time. Jesus had prepared him so much so that when the purpose that's bigger, greater, much more challenging was presented to him, he had the capacity to be able to do it now. Right? And I feel sometimes we have it back to front.
Okay.
That we want to find that one thing. Whatever else drives us is to get in that one thing. But yes, be driven. Yes, but the one thing that should matter is yours and my relationship with God. Okay. Getting close to him, being able to hear his voice, and he will prepare us for it. So I think the one that announces someone's purpose is God. God will announce it to us when we're ready, when we have the capacity to be able to handle it. And also, if we concentrate on the 99, then God will surely announce it and say, you're ready, separate unto me Barnabas and Paul for the work I have for them. And you'll be like, separate for me T and John for the work I have for them. Why? Because now they're at that place where they've experienced, they've gone through things, they have the capacity to be able to handle it. So, but once again, you can't remove the fact that God sometimes places desires in us, right? And he places desires in us in regards to push us towards his purpose, okay? But even those desires should be managed by having a robust relationship with God and other people. Because if God's going to stretch you, he's going to use people.
Right.
If God is going to add to your life, he's going to use people. Right? So you have to understand. And I suppose one of the books that helped me kind of like during this series was a book I read many years ago as a new convert, which is The Purpose-Driven Life.
Okay. Yeah.
By Rick Warren. Just having your life driven by the purpose of God. And so he actually breaks down the whole purpose thing into, he says there's 5 areas, there's 5 purposes every individual person has.
Okay.
And so he breaks them down into number 1, you were created to love God. Okay. Right? Love God with all your heart, all your mind, right? So God created you and I to love him. If we're not loving him, we're not living in our purpose, right? Yeah. So we're created to love him, which is worship. Worship is loving God back, right? So then that's what he says. So worship. Then the second thing he says is you were made for God's family, right? You're made for God's family. So God wants you to love him. And then he has this family that he wants you to be a part of, right? And in that family is where you find fellowship, right? Encourage one another. In that family is where, sometimes our church friends actually become closer to us than our own brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right? And it's just this, we tell our church friends things we'd never tell our family.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's why God created the church. He created you to be a part of his family, right? And so when you get to heaven, you still need to love God. Yeah. When you get to heaven, you still need to be in fellowship with your church family and with God.
Yeah.
Right? And then he says the third thing is we were made to become like Christ.
Okay.
Right? Discipleship.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So love God, love people, and then become like Jesus. The third thing that you and I need to pursue is becoming like Christ.
Yeah.
And then he then says that the fourth thing is serving others, putting other people before yourself.
Right.
Right. And then he finishes off and says the third thing is your mission, evangelism.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Evangelism. And when people talk about purpose, what they do is they look at that evangelism part. What's my mission? Yeah. What's my specific mission for my life? So that book kind of guided my thought process as I was doing the sermons and communicating the whole purpose thing, to say, if you do these 5 things, right, you then discover this one specific thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. So that's Wow.
It's a complete inversion, on like how we usually view purpose, or how it's spoken about in a non-Christian setting, is that purpose is always viewed as, and you dedicate your life to finding this one thing. And some people will even discard all those things you've talked about in pursuit of that one thing. I'm going to neglect my relationship with God, neglect a church family, neglect serving, because I need to focus and find this one thing.
Yeah. It's amazing, John. There's people that will say to you, Pastor, I'm battling my relationship with God. You're like, why? Because I don't know what God has for me.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah.
Hang on. Love him.
Yeah.
Love others. Become like Jesus. Serve people. Evangelize.
Yes.
Right? But sometimes I feel like the whole purpose drive for many people becomes sort of like a selfish ambition.
Yeah.
It's no longer about God. It's about them finding that it becomes an idol.
Yeah.
Right? But not for everyone, but for some people. Maybe not in Huddersfield. Maybe.
No, but you're right. I think it's because we live in a world where it seems that people have excelled by finding their one thing. So Michael Jordan, you could argue that his purpose was to play basketball. Bill Gates, you could argue his purpose was to be a programmer. Jeff Bezos to be an entrepreneur. So I think because we are surrounded with this world where it looks like people have found their thing and excelled, we then think, oh, that's the same model we need to apply.
Yeah. And I think that's an amazing thing, John. But let's take that concept for a second. Michael Jordan found his purpose to play basketball.
Yeah.
But if Michael Jordan dies without Jesus,
then it's all exactly
right. Bill Gates found his purpose giving us Microsoft.
Yeah.
But if he dies without Jesus,
it's
then was that really his purpose, though?
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Do you get what I mean?
Absolutely.
Was that then really his purpose?
Right. Because it's diverted him from,
Right? You know, or he made his purpose the be all and end all, and he forgot about the one that gave him the ability to be able to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so it's just so we're enjoying we've been enjoying this series this year, so I'm gonna try and we have some more messages from it. So
definitely. Pastor, just a few more questions to do with purpose though. So based on what you've said, then how can we develop, in our purpose as you've now defined it, that it's not usually what we think of as that one thing. It's a broad, series of things that we need to grow in. But how do we develop that, and grow in our general purpose?
Yeah. And I think how Paul summarizes it, it says that this one thing.
Yeah.
Right? Paul says this one thing. When Paul discovered Christ, he says, what does he say? He says, I want to know Christ and experience the power that raised him up and join in his suffering. He says something like that, right?
Yeah,
he says, I want to know Christ and I want to experience his power. Paul's pursuit wasn't more about his purpose. His pursuit was Christ.
Right. Wow. Okay.
Right? It says, I want to know Christ and experience the power that raised him from the dead. That word "know" is the word that's used for Adam and Eve when they first knew each other.
Oh my goodness!
Right?
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm chasing intimacy with God.
Wow.
Right. I want to know Christ. Right. Because if I know him, then I'm going to be able to experience the power, right, that raised him from the dead. Okay. If I can experience that, man, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think once again, it has to do with having the right perspective in regards to what really matters.
Yeah.
Pursue Christ, you will definitely discover your purpose. Pursue Christ, he will definitely open the doors for you to enter into your purpose. Pursue Christ, he will definitely mold you and shape you in order to live out his purpose for your life. And it's no longer your purpose, but it's his purpose in your life, right? And that's what we all want, to live out his purpose, not our basketball purpose, not our football purpose, right? We want to live out his purpose, right? Yeah. And Paul summarizes that in his dialogue when he speaks, and he says, this one thing that I do, counting everything else as garbage, I just, this is what I want. And what other examples? It's like when people discovered God or Jesus, they threw away everything, in order to pursue him.
That's right.
And those are the people we want to be like, but we want to be like them and forget what they left behind in order to pursue God. Right? It's like Abraham. Yes, Abraham had this voice that says, leave your family, go to the place I'm going to show you. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did the voice sound like?
Yeah.
Was it just a thought in his head? Was it heaven from the skies? This voice spoke.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, that's a ridiculous thing, but he pursued it.
Yeah.
Right, and God revealed himself to him. Right, and God puts him through all these things just to prepare him for Isaac.
Yeah.
Right, to prepare him for Isaac. Right, and so, but what, he failed in so many ways. How many times did Abraham lie?
True. Yeah.
Right, but God was, but there was something about his relationship with God that Abraham valued now, that he wanted. He knew, Abraham, I am your shield and your great reward, right? Even if you don't get your Isaac, I am your shield and your great reward, right? And I think Abraham got Isaac when he gave up, right? When he was like, you know what, man, God, right? And then he got his Isaac. So I think, yeah, not to kind of divert from the whole purpose thing. I think pursue Christ, and God, and He will reveal your purpose to you. He wants to show you the reason why He made you. None of us are mistake. Jeremiah, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. I ordained you to be a prophet.
Yeah.
God is the one that told Jeremiah was a prophet. It wasn't Jeremiah that told God, I want to tell you what, I'm a prophet. Right? Jeremiah had to wait for God to let him know that he's a prophet.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't want to wait to be told by God what we are or what His purpose for our lives is, you know. And so many of us have made so many mistakes by jumping the gun.
Yeah.
You know, so Jesus first, man.
That's honestly, it's even for me, it's just, it's amazing and refreshing to hear. But I've got a final question though, just for the brother or sister in church. In fact, for all of us, you've mentioned there pursuing Christ as our life's purpose. What practical steps can we take to pursue Jesus? Just the last question.
Yeah. Well, it's the obvious ones, John, but I suppose sometimes they sound too obvious for people. You know what I'm saying? So one of the things that Jesus Christ said is, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength.
Yeah.
Right? And so, do you know how hard that is? Right? That in it's like your whole being, everything, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that's what God wants us to do. That's what Jesus said. That's the greatest command, that we love God. And I suppose you can only love someone when you know them. You know, you probably read this quote before, is that the longer you get saved, the more you understand God's grace.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, and the more you see yourself as a wretched sinner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And that applies for us, is every single one of us need to grow in our understanding and in our knowledge of God. So what that means is we have to have a healthy appetite for God, for His word, for prayer, for the Spirit of God. You know, sometimes I feel as people, as Christians rather, we misunderstand the role of the Holy Spirit. So much so, if you go into the book of Judges, you always read the statement, and the Spirit of the Lord was upon him.
Right.
And the Spirit of the Lord was upon him. And the Spirit of the Lord was upon him. Right? And there's this, God has given us His Spirit in order to enable us to get to know Him, right? To experience Him. And so get to know God through His word, get to know God, keep connected with God through prayer, and always be willing to invite His Spirit into your life. Fasting, we all need to fast because we've all put on weight during lockdown. And those words are banned from my mind. As long as they come into my mind, those words fast.
Yeah.
Right? And so just have healthy appetites and also understand the role. Okay, here's an interesting thing, John. Many of us don't choose a church to go to. God is the one that leads us to a church. Okay. I experienced that firsthand. Okay. Right?
Yes. Okay.
So if God places me in a church, what that means is that God has everything that I need in order to mold me to enter into the purpose He has for me in that particular place.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? But what many people do is they feel like they can choose. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Right? But here's the problem though. When I make a decision about where to go to church, I use my senses. Does it look good? Do I hear the things I like to hear? Right? Is it sound? Does it feel welcoming? right? Am I accepted in this place? So we use our senses to determine whether we stay in a particular church.
Yeah.
The problem with that, those feelings and senses change. Right? So what do you do now when God's confronting my funky attitude?
Yeah.
Right? With people within the church. Now they're telling me what I'm like, and I don't like what I hear. Oh yeah, I used my senses to find this church. Now my senses are telling me it's not my church.
Yeah. Shift. Yeah.
So I go somewhere else. But when you understand God has brought you somewhere, you then understand this, that the people he puts around you are there to mold you, to help you, and to shape you to becoming what he wants you to become. So every battle, every disagreement, every issue, we ought to resolve it in that sphere, because that's where God planted you. Yeah. Unless God tells you you need to move, but let that voice be very loud, because sometimes it's trying to, how can I put it, shortcut.
Yeah.
Right. The process, the purifying process of God. We want to shortcut it, and we're like, yeah, God spoke to me. I need to leave. Yeah, okay. How much dignity is there in you staying and going through what you're going through and coming out the other end, and then to testify about what God put you through?
Yeah. Yeah.
But so people don't understand the role of the church. So prayer, reading your word, the Spirit of God, and being involved in your local church, and allowing God to use people, the instruments that he always uses to shape you into becoming who he wants you to be.
Wow. Amen. You couldn't have put it better, Pastor T. Thank you so much. I have been blessed.
John, man, let me go battle this live stream thing, man. Battle live streaming.
My thinking has been challenged, and no, Pastor T, it's been a blessing. And I know everyone that's going to watch this is going to be blessed. And just how we view purpose, our thinking about purpose, our torment sometimes with purpose. Like I said, there's sometimes that conflict in worrying as to whether you're doing this specific thing, and you just completely turn that on its head and giving us something, even the best thing to make your purpose, which is Jesus. So Pastor T, wow. Thank you so much once again for carving out time for us.
Hey, you're welcome, John. You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Listen, have a great Sunday.
Yes. And all the best tomorrow. I'm sure you guys will get Proclaim working, and
yeah, man. All these. Listen, I've never learned so much in the space of 12 weeks. Fast doing my A levels in 12 weeks, I would pass them, man, and I wouldn't get the unclassifieds I got before even, when I was 19 years old, man. I would pass.
Get a computer science degree, honestly.
My goodness, the amount of stuff we've learned. But it's good, These opportunities create, if you receive them well, you learn.
Amen.
Thank you.
To Jeremiah, Jemima, God bless you.
Hey, say hi to the wife, say hi to the kids.
Yes, we'll do.
All
God
right.
bless you. Thank you, Pastor T.
Take it. God bless you.
God bless you.